going to be gone for the rest of the season. We've added another one to the list. Unfortunately, Tyrone Fanono is going to have season-ending surgery on his foot. He kind of tried to limp through fall camp. We were hoping it was just an arch sprain, and unfortunately, he's actually getting surgery today. Should be a quick recovery. Good news is we'll be able to use a red shirt for Tyrone because he did not play did not redshirt as a freshman, and just kind of, it's funny how sometimes things stack up at one position, and I think that just really impressed with the job that Byron Hout's doing with our D-line. Based on the number of guys that we've lost up front and the experience that we've lost and how we've been able to consistently perform, I think at a pretty high level. And it's going to be even more challenging now knowing that we're not going to get him back. So that's the bad news. And the good news is we've got some young kids that are taking advantage of some opportunities. I think Marcus Ferreter from Butte has done a really good job of filling in and maturing and growing every game. And then we've got Derek Marks from Belgrade, who's scrappy, tough kid, and is actually a pretty good natural pass rusher and has provided some real quality downs for us. And we are going to make a move. We did it last week, putting Woody Brandom over there on the defensive side. I think that gives us a little bit more maturity and size. And I think Woody's a good reactionary player, very sudden, has good twitch, and I think will adjust well. And I know he's excited up to be able to help the team in that regard.
What about Chad?
Chad was out at practice yesterday, obviously finished the game on Saturday, and I'll have a lot more information on him at 4 o'clock with our injury report today, see how he comes back after kind of taking it easy, getting some treatment yesterday.
All right, what can you tell us about Sac State?
Well, I can tell you that they're kind of what I would expect them to be. I mean, you've got a team that's from the largest metropolitan area in the conference, and so they've got access to a lot of skill players, and they are very good at the skill positions. I think their quarterback is a good player. He's sitting about 52% of his passes. They throw a lot of shots down the field. They do stretch defense as well. He's probably at his best when he's using his legs. He's a very good scrambler. They do design specific runs for him, quarterback draw, zone read, things of that nature. He gets out of the pocket, scrambles well. We're going to have to do a good job of leveraging him. He had a very, very good game against Idaho State on Saturday, and he's kind of, I think, finding his guys. He's got number 5. He's a good player, the Henney kid. He's a really good returner. He's super quick, kind of a Jay-Sean Gates body type, 5'7", 155-pound kid. Sharp breaks, catches the ball in the open field, a lot of quick screens, and he can do some things with it. And then the guy that's kind of their vertical threat down the field is number 7. And they hit him a couple times in the Idaho State game, and he's a big, long junior college transfer that has really good top-end speed. I like both of their backs, 4 and 25. They kind of complement each other. 4 is kind of more of the scat back. They use him more in flare situations, get him the ball out of the backfield. He's a good inside zone runner. And then 25, I think, is a complete back. He's probably their best overall football player on that side of the ball. I think he leads the team with 21 receptions. And he's also, I think, second in carry, leads the team in carries and receptions. And I think he's a guy that they can utilize in a variety of situations. He's a smart, tough runner, and I think that's kind of the book on them offensively. And I would guess, not having been in this league before, but I would guess that most coaches would say the same thing about Sac State, that they have very good skill talent, specifically on the offensive side of the ball, and that's always a concern. And I think the quarterback is maturing. You can kind of see it week by week. He's making better decisions, getting the ball out of his hands quickly, finding those go-to guys, and they're utilizing their talent well. I think on the defensive side, it's been an interesting deal because you look at the Fresno State game, and I mean, basically it's a one-possession game going in the fourth quarter. It's 10-3, and then Fresno State kind of opens up a lead in the fourth quarter on them. And then you look at the Weber State game, and that's a 7-7 ball game with about 7 minutes to play. And so they've played some very good defense at times. I think their best defensive players, their inside linebacker, Manoa Pearson at number 55, very active, smart. You can tell he kind of gets those guys aligned. They have a secondary guy, number 19, that I think has been there forever, senior that's played a lot of football for him. He's a very productive player. And they have 2 ends, number 99 and number 98, that lead the team in TFLs and sacks. Those guys are good players. They do have a freshman interior defensive lineman that maybe doesn't have a lot of stats, number 91, very quick, causes a lot of problems. And so I like the group of guys that they have. They've given up some explosive plays at times, and they've hurt themselves with turnovers, not unlike what we did this last week against UND. And so I think that they're a dangerous, dangerous outfit. I think they're playing better football week by week. You saw that, and there was a vast improvement from week 1 to the Fresno State game, and then to week 3 rather, when they played Weber, and then there was a very competitive game against Idaho State, and they've had 3 tough road games on the road. Now they're at home, and we've got to go to a tough environment in Sacramento. I know that's just from the days of playing in the old WAC when I was at Boise State. Sometimes you go to some of those California schools, and there's a lot going on in Sacramento, just like what there was in San Jose. You go to San Jose, and it's a very different environment, especially because we've been at home, and we've been blessed to have tremendous atmospheres here for the last 3 weeks. And I think it's a very different feel. And what you got to do is you got to bring your own energy. We're not going to be able to rely on 19,000 strong to be giving us juice when we need it. And that was an unbelievable atmosphere on Saturday. I can't say enough about our home fans.
How has this team been able to rebound from the loss on Saturday?
I think they responded well yesterday. We spent some time, maybe a little bit more time in terms of the psychology part of it yesterday than we did maybe after the Idaho loss, because the nature of this one, the Idaho loss was a very tough loss too, but I think there was a lot of unknowns going into that game. And I think now we expect to be competitive, and we expect to go out and win games. And the really hard part about that one is I felt like it was an opportunity maybe for us to have early in this process to kind of have a defining moment, to beat a good team at home, because it's really hard to win on the road in this league. And I felt like that was it was a squandered opportunity, and I think that everybody in that locker room after the game felt the exact same way I did, which is all the things that we had talked about going into this game. The game played out almost identical to what we had discussed, with one exception, and it was a glaring exception in terms of the turnover margin. And so I think these guys know that we're going to be honest with them, and we're going to put a good plan in front of them, and I think they trust us, and they responded very well yesterday, and I anticipate that we'll have a spirited week of practice.
You mentioned on Saturday, paring down the game plan, defensively giving up just a few calls. What was the specific game plan? How we use a similar strategy going forward?
Well, part of the reason we needed to be simple was because UND does a lot of things. I mean, they didn't do as much against us as they've shown in some other games, but they have a lot of unbalanced formations where you've got to communicate. So if you make a call, if it's an exotic call, a blitz, for example, where alignment matters, well, all of a sudden now they trade those tight ends and they become unbalanced. So you've got 6 pieces of communication that have to take place. Well, if we just play our base calls and let our guys get lined up and play fast, that was certainly a big part of it. One of the objectives that we had was to try to get them to third down, because we felt once we got them to third down, now we could open up the playbook a little bit. They were a little bit more vanilla. They'd get into 11 personnel, one back, one tight end sets, and play a little bit more conventional offense than they do when they're in mixed downs or it's a third and short. And so, our third downs were very good. I mean, they were 4-16 for 25%. We were 8-16 for 50%. And so that part of the game, I think, played out fairly well for us.
Can you talk a little bit more about Byron? Obviously a tough situation for a first-year coach to be thrown into here.
Yeah.
Talk about how he's responded.
Well, the thing about Byron, I've known him since he was about 17 years old. And we're from the same part of the world. He's a Coeur d'Alene kid. I'm a St. Mary's kid. We have a lot in common in that regard. And, I knew when I was coaching him, when I was his position coach at Boise State, I knew that this guy was probably going to get into coaching because he wanted to be an education major, and that was the avenue that he was going to pursue. And I think at the time he had a girlfriend. He was trying to figure out if he was going to, do this or not. And when I left Boise, after the 2011 season and went to Washington State, I knew we ended up having a guy leave, a graduate assistant leave late, and he didn't graduate until May. And so it was like the perfect storm. So I was able to get him to come up and work with me at Washington State for a year. Then he matriculated back to Boise and finished his master's degree. And so I knew he was a guy that when I got my opportunity, I was going to bring him along. And the cool thing about it is, he's been coached in a similar system, a similar culture, and I can help him a little bit, and he takes it exactly the right way. It's not like I'm stepping on his toes if I walk into the D-line meeting room and I want to say, hey, this is what we got to focus on today. I think he totally gets that, and I think he's cultivating a mentality and a mindset with our guys up front that is exactly who we need to be. It's about toughness, about ownership and your job, living in the 6 inches in front of your face is what we call it up front. And I just love the way those guys have responded. I think there's 2 unsung heroes on this defense right now without question, and that's Tucker Yates and Zach. I think those 2 guys, down in and down out, play in and play out, have given us an opportunity. And you can tell, I'm sure the linebackers would say the same thing. It's a little different world when those guys are striking and leveraging their blocks and not letting those guys climb to the second level. And I think a lot of that has to do with the coaching that Byron's given those guys. We haven't given those guys a million things to do. It's been, this is your job and this is how you execute it. If this happens, this is how you respond. I think he's done a great job of giving those guys very concise coaching and giving them answers for problems.
Greg Collins, what have you seen out of him?
I think that guy has been really, really tough against the run. I mean, I wasn't quite sure because it was like that. You kind of go through that period of time in fall camp and even last spring where you're thinking, how's he going to adjust to this? Being an inside guy most of his career in high school as well as college, and there's always going to be those what ifs. Okay, how do I respond here? And the more he plays, the better he gets. He did a great job of setting the edge for us in the run game. I think he and Jesse complement each other extremely well. He's getting better as a pass rusher, which is what I thought he could bring to the table with his length and athleticism. And I think he's improved each week, which is what the objective is.
What's the learning curve like for a guy like Woody?
I think it's going to go quick. I think we've got him in a position where there's not a lot of, it's not making checks. He doesn't have to drop into coverage. I mean, it's just this is your alignment in this front. This is your alignment in this front. Here's your key. Here's how you respond if he does this. Here's how you respond if he does this. And even, he played in the game in defense, in the red zone, and did his job. And so he didn't flinch, and I think that's awesome that we've got a guy that I think has some real talent and ability and can give us some depth there. The good news is he doesn't have to learn it all right now because Marcus and Derek have done an awesome job. And those guys kind of have their rotation going. And if we can get a little bit more out of Woody week by week, that's going to be important because we've already seen that the D-line has been a little bit of an issue for us in terms of guys staying healthy.
Is Shiloh kind of working his way back?
We're working on him. He's maybe a little bit more of a long-term project. Some of the things that he's had with day one, it looks like spaghetti on a plate. You do it 100 times and it gets done right. And so we're starting to develop some continuity there. And I think that's been good. And I also think that Grant's figuring out who he is as a pass rusher. And that's an important part of the process. And taking advantage of his length. He's going to be a good player. I think he is a good player. I think he's going to be mature into a complete player with the ability to play the run and the pass efficiently.
With Woody's switch, do you worry? He's such a good young player on the other side of the ball. So do you worry about Robin?
Peter to pay Paul?
Yeah.
I worry about that all the time. And that's a concern, but I think we've got to take a look at what our most immediate need is. We've got 3 guys at tight end with Austin, Curtis Amos, and Sully that I think can provide enough for us there. We'll still use Woody in some two tight end sets, 22 personnel, tight red zone, those kind of things. He's got banked reps at that, so that's going to be good. But those are tough decisions sometimes because you got to evaluate what's best for the individual and how that fits into what's best for the organization as a whole. And I think right now this is the decision that we need to make to maximize our ability to have a football team by week 11.
You talked about getting back to valuing the football. So what steps do you take, this week to make sure you're doing that?
Well, we started it yesterday. And some friendly reminders about how valuable that thing is, and not pressing, letting the game come to you, make good decisions with the football. We had 2 fumbles. One of them, hey, those are going to happen. Bang, bang plays and contact. The other one is a decision that we've got to make quicker and more decisive. And 2 of the interceptions were bad throws. And I think Tyler would be the first one to admit that. One of them, that's a tough situation. Those things happen. And so, that's the bottom line. Is we've got to do a good job of making sure that if we need to use some more hard count or what we call purple, where we're doing our look back so we can see where the pressure's coming from. The one interception we had, they actually got no points out of it. They missed a field goal in the first half where we ran the out route. I thought it was a great disguise. Number 8, their big safety, would come down generally to the side the pressure was coming from. He was rolled down right on top of the receiver. We thought the Sam linebacker was coming. And both of them dropped out. They ended up max dropping and undercutting the out. And that was a really good call at the right time. By what we teach our quarterback, that's where he should have gone with the ball, pre-snap. And I thought they did a nice job. That's a well-coached outfit and a good defense in their own right. And so, those things are going to happen. They have good players. They're on scholarship too. They're going to make plays. We've just got to be able to overcome those and not let it snowball. And that's what happened is we turned one thing into another. It's not good.
The throw at the end of the game to Mitch, you talked about putting that on the line. Was that essentially the same throw?
Same throw that you had on our sideline in the third quarter. Exactly right. And, you can't float that. They were running a stick coverage where they're basically reading the number 2 receiver. And And if he runs it out, he's going to hard play that, and the safety's going to jump over the top of the vertical. And so, he made the right throw earlier in the game, and I don't think he anticipated that coverage combination at that moment. Floated the ball a little bit. One of the things that I think, we've got to do a better job of too, is as receivers, is we've got to do a better job of winning more 50-50 balls. I mean, there was a lot of opportunities for us, and some of it was tight coverage and those guys knocking the ball down. But Herbie had 2 in that game that I thought, heck, maybe he makes that one. We're in a different situation, and so that's something that we've got to put our guys in position where throws are contested, and we go and compete for the ball. And we've got to win those opportunities more frequently.
You mentioned not having a guy that can take the top off, or not having a game breaker right now. Is there a way to remedy that with the guys you have on the roster?
Well, I hope Jay Sean is one of those guys. He's got a little bit different speed than some of the other guys that we have right now. I think Kevin Cassis is emerging as a guy who has good short area quickness and can do some things for us. And but I think the throws are still there. We're still finding ways to hit seam balls. We were able to push the ball down the field effectively against UND on Saturday and hit more explosive plays in the passing game. And I think those are things that are going to come. It's just amazing and frustrating and all those things at the same time, how close you are to becoming a really good team. And I think that we're just it's battling through some immaturity and learning some tough lessons. And those moments of clarity, I think, are ahead of us, and we've just got to stay the course and have the discipline to do that.
Jeff, John McKay once told me that he expected to lose at least 1 game for every freshman you played. Obviously, that's not going to happen with you, but how impressed have you been with your young kids?
Well, I think a lot of those guys have really stepped up at key moments in the game. Obviously, you can point to Kevin in this last game. I just was sure that the guy upstairs was planning on us winning that game as many chances as he gave us, and you just knew, hey, all we need to do is make one play. And Kevin made that one play. That's what it took. And so, I think it's interesting to see these guys develop. To see the difference between, Chris Murray, for example, as being a kid in Lawndale, who's probably playing a lot of backyard ball, and now having to really be disciplined and play within a system and make good decisions and know the call. And so the level of preparation at that position in particular that you have to have, I think that catches up with guys when they've got to go to, Psych 101 and English 101 and, not stay up all night in the dorm playing whatever they play on their video games anymore. I don't even know. I was going to say Nintendo, but that would have been wrong. So I think we've got some guys that are doing a really good job and being in some tough situations. And I know this, we're going to be a battle-tested outfit, and we're not going to have a bunch of freshmen at the end of the year, because they will have played a season. We're going to have a bunch of guys that have played some football around here that understand that the margin for error is very, very small. We play a lot of good teams, and we got a heck of a tough stretch coming up. And it starts with this road trip, because there's no easy road trip in the Big Sky. We don't travel the same way we did in the SEC or the Pac-12. We have a limited roster. You only bring in 58 guys. Tough decisions have to be made, and it doesn't matter who you're playing. There's a reason why 73% of the teams in this league win at home, and that's part of it, is how you travel. And so we've got to get that SWAT team mentality going this week and get ready to go play a tough opponent who's improved each week.
Overall, have you seen growth from your young kids?
Absolutely. I think, you could say we took a step back this last week. We took a step back in the turnover margin. Everything else we did better. We continued to play solid on defense against the run. We're making them earn it. Statistically, this was one of our better games on offense against a better defense. And so I think we had a good plan going in. And, but we can't take one step forward in one area and 2 steps back in another, obviously. And so I think that was kind of the tail of the tape in this game.
Sorry. I'm talking about the young kids. Have you seen the improvement that they've made?
Yes. I think Kevin is a great example of that. I think Derek Marks is a great example of that. Guys that are playing a ton of downs as true freshmen. And each opportunity they get, they go out and they learn from a mistake they made previously, and they correct that and improve.
You had the odd clock situation in the last minute of the first half, just with Chad going down, but did you feel like that? It looked like it took a long time after the gunner run to get the next play.
Yeah, well, we were kind of making a decision what we wanted to do there, because keep in mind that was the 3rd down.
Yeah.
So do we want to punt here? What I really wanted to do was I wanted to try to get the ball somewhere near midfield so that we could launch. and let the clock run out, even if it was a 4th down.
Sure.
And that was the ideal scenario. The ideal scenario didn't play out there. We had to make a decision what we wanted to do on 3rd. Okay, let's go ahead and let's try to get us in a position where we can put the ball down the field. And we did. We got tackled on what, this 8 or 9 yard line, whatever it was. It would have been better if we were a little closer to midfield and could have thrown the Hail Mary. You never know what's going to happen. In college football, those things seem to get caught a lot. But that was kind of the mindset and the thought process going in there.
Tyler seems to carry himself pretty even keel. Would you say that, based on, the performance on Saturday, he's still carrying himself that way? How would you say?
Yeah, he was in a funk. I mean, yesterday I had to drag him out of it a little bit. I mean, I think he takes things very seriously and very personally. And hey, there's no one individual that ever wins or loses a football game. This is the greatest team sport in the world for a reason. And I can point to many, many examples in that game where Tyler made the right decision and the right throw and gave us opportunities. And I know he's going to beat himself up over it, but you know what? His teammates got his back, and so do we as coaches. And I think he knows that how he carries himself is respected by his team, certainly by us. I mean, he's a very humble, hardworking young man, and he wants to do better. Nobody goes out there trying to make mistakes. I get that.
Can you shed some light on the toughest decisions you've had to make to get to 58?
Well, they're in flux a little bit, it's because it kind of changes each week by, okay, this guy is maybe not going to be able to play because of this injury. This guy's got this going on. This game plan plays into that. And so there's been a lot of that. There's so many moving parts. The roster thing has been an interesting evolution for me to kind of figure out, because there's, when you're taking 72 in the Pac-12, there's not a lot of tough decisions. When you're taking 58 in the Big Sky, there's some tough decisions. And one of the things that doesn't help us right now is we don't have a place kicker that can do more than one thing. So we've got to travel 3 of those. So now that takes away another DB or another wide receiver. Game plan wise, it might be, hey, we're playing a spread offense and we need to make sure that we have 2 nickels instead of 3 will linebackers. And so those decisions come down more to who's helping us in what area in the kicking game, and stylistically how we feel like we need to play the game. And those are certainly, that's been an interesting challenge, to go, what do you mean we can't take that guy? What's the difference between 58 and 59 if we got to make a tough decision? So whatever that arbitrary number. You could see maybe some guys playing in some spots that we've been not having to use. We've got some really good players that, we get some young guys going. You get Carl Tucker covering kicks. Well, KT's one of those guys. Okay, is he going to be? He's going to be in the mix for us for sure this week. But that would be an example where you maybe have a guy that's primarily a special teams player, and at home you don't have to worry about where they're at in the depth chart on defense or offense. And now you got, okay, well, heck, might have to use Gunner a little bit more in one of these areas or whatever. And so yeah, that does come into play.
Did you have that limited item, the 58?
No, we could travel 70 because it was non-conference.
Last couple of years, Sac State has done some line games up front defensively to free up the middle linebacker. Do you see that again? Did they let him run free?
Yeah, they're not a heavy blitz team. Yeah. They do like blitzing him because he's a pretty good blitzer. He's very active and disruptive. And so, yeah, they do some of that. They do, but they're kind of more of a static base defense. And they've, I think they've done a nice job. I mean, like I said, they improved dramatically from week 1 to week 2. You could see it. I mean, they obviously walked the dog a little bit against Western Oregon and probably got lit up, and they came out and played some really, really good football against Weber State. And or against Fresno, and then you saw it against Weber the next week, and so it's been good. They've improved.
They've only scored 3 points total in the first quarter.
Yeah, slow starting outfit.
Right. So how in this particular matchup is that first quarter? How important is that going to be?
College football is a long game. I mean, that's what I tell our guys every week. I mean, the momentum swings and the ebbs and flows of college football. It is it's, talk about dying 1,000 deaths. I mean, can we have one more media timeout? Right when you think it's over. And so I think that, yeah, hey, starting fast can be really important, but it's about finishing. And I think that's the biggest thing, is who's going to have the focus level and the conditioning to be able to finish in the fourth quarter. And there's, we've had 2 games where we didn't get that done.
Do you see unique things they're doing offensively in the run game? Coach Kramer and Warren both mentioned that they were doing some weird stuff to kind of spread out in the middle and then attack. Do you see that?
I'm seeing inside zone is what I'm seeing. No, I didn't see anything exotic. They get into empty sets and run Q draw. They'll run some fold schemes inside, but those aren't things that are what I would call anything innovative. I mean, I think they're doing a good job of utilizing their personnel, but it's not Chip Kelly's trick offense or anything. I mean, it's pretty basic stuff.
The Western Oregon is the common opponent. Can we derive anything from?
Not a stinking thing, and I don't think there's any parallels at all. Again, I don't think that they, maybe they overlooked them, which kind of helped us because it got our guys' attention. Because Sac State came in here and was very, very competitive until late in the game last year in a tough environment. And I think historically there's been some shootouts, especially in Sacramento, against this outfit. And so, like I said, I think this is a team that's improved every week, and they have very good skill talent. I mean, I'd take all their wide receivers. I'd take those running backs. I mean, I'd be happy to have them. And so, what we've got to do is we've got to have a good plan in place to neutralize those explosive plays on that side of the ball. We've got to leverage the quarterback because when he gets out of the pocket, that's when he's really dangerous, and he does make plays with his feet. And we're going to have to establish the run game and do a good job of making good decisions when the football's in the air. And then we've got to go play our best game. We're not at that point where we can go out and not have our edge and win.